So welcome back, guys, for another video again. Dishing them out like I've never done before, but it's funny, it's fun, I like it, and you know, we got a lot of time these days, so let's crack on. And this is a 1990s question tag, and I haven't been tagged because nobody fucking tags this motherfucker. But yeah, some people made it an open tag, so I might as well do it. So it's 7 questions about the 90s, and I think it was Gurnaldinho that made the first one, and so it's a shout out. I really need to start 2 shout outs, because during all of this this weird time we're living in right now, a lot of people are putting out a lot of videos, and I found so many new channels, and Gurnaldinho is one of them, and the person that I'm gonna watch the questions from is from GloryHunter. That's another, I will link his channel underneath as well, and that's another channel that I found recently that I really like. And yeah, he collects basically everything that you can collect when you talk about video games. So I want to get this video inside 16 minutes, so let's start with the first question. Favorite cartoon you own on DVD, or just the favorite cartoon? So did I think about these questions? Yeah, so some of them, but the first one I kind of forgot to think about. Favorite cartoon you own on DVD, or just favorite cartoon? Probably has to be one of the Studio Ghibli, if you could call that a cartoon. You know, that's anime, but you know, it's a cartoon. That's what anime really means, doesn't it? So I think some of the Studio Ghibli ones are inside the 90s. I really hope so, because otherwise I look stupid. Of course it is inside the 90s. Favorite one is when you see my channel, it's always my neighbor Totoro. Yeah, so I put that in on question number 1, and I have that on DVD. I could have showed you here that. So I have 2 other things I'm going to show, 3 other things I'm going to show. So Sega or Nintendo, you say? So for me in the 90s, it was actually neither of them. It was PlayStation. So when PlayStation came around for us in Europe in '95, that really got me back into gaming, because I was away from gaming for quite some time. But the question is Sega or Nintendo, and I will definitely go with Nintendo, because I played a lot of Nintendo 64 as well in the 90s, but I didn't own the system. But a friend had it, and we played a lot of Mario Kart 4 against 4, and yeah, I really loved that. So yeah, I didn't have a 64 on release, but I had the PlayStation, and that you will see in the next question. Favorite console, video game, and that has to be in the 90s, of course, and I mean, back in those days, that would be my number 1. I absolutely love that game, and it was like a mixture between Resident Evil and a JRPG, and I've never seen anything like it, and we probably never seen anything like it till even now. And that was Parasite Eve, the first one. That only came out in the US and in Japan, but my brother had he shipped his PS1 like super early, so I got that, and of course then I had the game in its original form as well. But most of you guys know that watched me for a while. I've sold my PS1 collection, and yeah, sometimes I miss it, of course, especially maybe Parasite Eve, and sometimes, you know, I think about my Final Fantasy collection I had, especially for the PS1. I had PS1, I had Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 in all regions, in all different variations ever made. I mean, it was so many games. I kind of hurt sometime when I think about that. I sold that, but I'm not really playing JRPGs anymore, so that had to go. Favorite comic in the 90s? My favorite comics back in the days, but this has to be the 80s, was like Tintin and Spirou and stuff like that. You know, they're from Belgium. But we talk about the 90s now, and then you have to understand the 90s, I was in my mid-teens in the early 90s, so I didn't really read any comics anymore. But something I always had in my shitter was, I've written it down because it's called something else in Swedish. I always like to have that. That's the only place where I read comics after the 90s, was when I taken a shit. And in Swedish it's called Knasen, but in English it's an American comic, B.T. Bailey, about a guy in the military in the US. It's really funny. I always read that a lot. I still have at my mom and dad's hundreds of those magazines. And I also read a lot of in the shitter, the Far Side. I absolutely love the Far Side by Larson. It's, wow, so funny. If you hadn't read it, it's basically about animals but behaving like humans. That makes it really funny. Oh, I love that. So that's probably my favorite, the Far Side, I have to say. And then we have favorite pro wrestler. I couldn't care less about wrestling. My God, I didn't have any friends that liked it back in the 80s either when I grew up. And in my 90s, you know, I was mid-teens, so then it was even more silly. But I remember one guy, Jake the Snake Roberts, so I have to say him. He was kind of cool. What was the other one called? The Deathbringer? No, the Undertaker. The Undertaker? I'm not gonna say Hulk Hogan because everybody knows he's kind of a dick. So I say Jake the Snake Roberts. Favorite song and favorite music video. I actually went to my music collection a bit, and favorite song of the 90s has to be from one of my favorite albums of all time, Experience by Prodigy, and that is Outer Space. I absolutely love Prodigy, especially like the 3 first records. I've seen them live maybe 3 times, I think 3 times, yeah. And yeah, this is my favorite song with Prodigy. There's not much else to say about it. They were kings of, you know, the breakbeat, big beat era, definitely. And yeah, but I have all the singles and all the records for at least the first 3 records. I even stood out a CD shop the whole night for like 10 hours in line, waited to pick up The Fat of the Land. And I haven't heard any singles from it or anything. I didn't know anything about it really. And I went home, it was like early in the morning, and I went into my the living room at my mom and dad's, and I put on Smack My Bitch Up for the first time I ever heard it, and fucking almost blew up the whole house. I was like, fucking hell, that's the fattest fucking beats ever made. Jesus Christ, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And my favorite video, maybe this is a bit boring because this is probably what everybody else says is probably the best video in the 90s, and it's from the record Ill Communication by Beastie Boys. So I don't have a lot of space, so I've throw away all my cases, and I bought these sleeves, so I still keep the back and the front and everything else and the record in these sleeves. because I have a big CD collection. I used to collect music before I started collecting games. Yeah, Sabotage. Oh, can't stand it. I know you planned it. Officer, take this. Such a good video. Best video. So good. It's like watching a 70s police show. So cool. And this question I don't really understand. Favorite live action TV show and episode. Live action. What is that? It's like, because all the people I watched, they just said their favorite TV show from the 90s. But it says live action. Is that something that's live and people... I don't understand. Did people get this question wrong, or do I understand it wrong? But I'm gonna do, and like, it's just a favorite TV series for me. I'm gonna do an episode. Yeah. And this, I absolutely love this TV series. It's it's a top 10 for me ever, and I think still to this day this is the biggest international hit in Sweden ever. I think we were over 3 million Swedes watch this TV series every week on Wednesdays, and I remember I was at was it high school? No, high school. I think you call it college. You know, the 10th, 11th, 12th grade, whatever you call it. And this was the only thing we talked about in school on Thursday. And I remember we were like 9.5 million people in Sweden back in those days, so like 30% watched this. It was a huge hit, and till this day I absolutely love it. And I remember when I watched it the first time, like, what the hell is this? I love it. And that is Twin Peaks. Fucking Laura Palmer. I don't really collect TV series, but I had to have this one. I mean, season 2 is not that good. No, it's good, it's good. It's not as good as this one, but the favorite episode, we have to go with the first one. When they find Laura, wrapped up in all that plastic. And yeah, what can I say about this? One of the best TV shows ever made. It's weird, of course it's weird, but that's what you get. That's what you get with David Lynch. You know, it's always weird with him, but in weird in such a cool way. It's actually a bit of a sci-fi TV series if you haven't seen it. It's not much sci-fi in it, but it basically is. So yeah, that was my response. 90s question tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because now it's just an open tag. I'm going to put their 2 channels down here, Gurnaldinho and GloryHunter. And just hope this open tag continues so we can see what other people loved as well. I prefer the 80s actually to the 90s much more. I thought the 80s was way cooler. I mean, the 90s was really cool as well, with a lot of cool video games, and especially the hip-hop and rap era. The 90s were their peak. The 90s hip-hop was amazing, but I didn't really play much video games in the 90s. I played pinball all through the 90s. Yeah, at least up to like 98 maybe. I played pinball almost every day. But yeah, 90s was cool as well, but nothing beat the 80s. 80s was something else. I kind of think of Twin Peaks like an 80s TV series, to be honest. I was this close putting it in Beverly Hills, but because I really liked 90210 back in the 90s, and come on, be nice. You liked it as well. I think it started at 89 though, so I can't really say it was a... I think it was 89 it started. Anyway guys, have a good one, and stay safe and be freaking nice.